G'day guys and gal. The Emperor of Mankind is a Giga Chad. The dude was able to conquer nearly the entire galaxy within a couple centuries, whilst also dealing with some seriously mentally disabled children with obscene behavioral issues. He did a lot of things right, but clearly not enough things, as he is currently an undead corpse hooked up to the galaxy's most agonizing torture device, as the very empire he built corrodes around him and is poisoned by policies and dogma that he fought like crazy to free mankind from. Yes, the Emperor, for all of his power, wisdom and sex appeal, made a number of fatal mistakes that if he had simply avoided, then the galaxy would look like a much nicer place. But before we get started, the goal of the Major Minis, that being my own line of professionally crafted and printed miniatures that ship anywhere in the world for only $10, yes, that is a huge flex, is to make a mini for everyone, so that every tabletop gamer from all walks of life can be like, you know what, that's a dope ass mini, I'ma buy that shit. And today we make a big step in that direction with the launch of the latest and greatest Major Minis, the Xenonid Raptors. Yes, I've combined two horrific nightmare fuel aliens into one horrible abomination. The Xenonid Raptors come in a pack of 5 with 5 different poses. The best part is that each Xenonid is modular, meaning you could swap in between their heads, arms and tails, creating a shitload of different diverse options if you wanted to buy multiple packs to create an absolute swarm of these. The detail is unreal. I'm so impressed with how these came out and also how they print. One issue with highly detailed models and 3D printing is that sometimes it can weaken the model, but just not in this case. I plan on expanding the range of Xenonids to include the Xenonid Warriors as well as a Xenonid Tyrant Queen. So the more of these little terrors we sell, the sooner those will come. They scale the same as Warhammer 40k gaunts, which, what a coincidence. Link to pick these guys up is below. Today we'll go over 5 of the Emperor's greatest mistakes. We'll detail what the mistake was, why it was a mistake, and what he could have done differently to avoid the horrific outcome these mistakes resulted in. Let's get into it. The Emperor was a lot of things, many of them legendary and impressive, but an empathetic and caring father he was not. While his sons were running around struggling with daddy issues, his approach to that was, "Can't you shut the fuck up and do what I say?" Whilst they just wanted a hug from their daddy. A key example of this autistic parenting was when the Emperor first encountered and was reunited with his son Angron. Angron had been leading a rebellion against these slave master overlords who had forced him to become a vicious gladiator and had fucked up his brain by implanting the butcher's nails. A device that triggered pain and aggression as well as pleasure when inflicting violence, to make someone a more vicious warrior. Unfortunately for Angron, his Primarch brain was not compatible with the nails, so it basically just mulched his brain without any of the pleasure receptors. The Emperor said to Angron, "Okay buddy boy, rebellion over. This planet is in the process of joining the Imperium. Come with me." And Angron was like, "What about my brothers and sisters, the gladiatorial family who fight under my banner?" And the Emperor was like, "Well, I mean, they can't become Astartes due to the nails and their age, so I reckon let's just let them die." Angron didn't vibe this and was one of the only Primarchs to tell his father to get fucked. Angron was prepared to fight and die alongside his outnumbered and surrounded gladiator army, but the Emperor, likely in a moment of hurt pride, teleported Angron to his ship and basically kidnapped him, leaving his men and women to be massacred without their leader. He then knocked Angron out when Angron lashed out in rage. This was easily the least wholesome father-son moment in the entirety of 40k. Like Corferon molesting Lorga was more wholesome than this. As a result of this action, this mistake, the Emperor had forever lost the loyalty of Angron, who admitted that he probably would have ended up rebelling against the Emperor regardless if there was a Horus heresy or not. After all, Angron literally attacked and killed numerous space wolves prior to the heresy, and that was still a decent while off his brain completely melting. If the Emperor had instead beamed himself, a handful of custodians and a few hundred world eaters down to the planet and fought alongside Angron and his gladiators, then it would have secured the absolute love and loyalty of Angron until his very last moment. Angron would have ended up more loyal than even the likes of Russ or Dawn, as Angron's only real issue with the Emperor was this particular mistake. It's not super clear why the Emperor didn't help Angron's army. It's likely a combo of him being shitty at Angron's rejection, the planet going through the process of compliance, hence shouldn't really attack it midway, as well as the Emperor not understanding the importance of Angron's relationship with them. Either way, it was a massive mistake that has now resulted in arguably the most powerful demon in existence stomping around the Imperium and fucking shit up. Speaking of fucking over his sons and completely alienating them from his love, we now have the raising of Monarchia. Basically, Lorgar and his legion were hyper loyal to the Emperor, but in the wrong way. They would conquer a world and then spend years converting it to the worship of the Emperor, resulting in these highly religious paradise worlds. However, this meant that the Wordbearers were by far the slowest legion at conquering worlds, and this religious indoctrination was in direct opposition to the Emperor's secular imperium. So the Emperor decided to teach Lorgar a harsh lesson. The bigger got the Ultramarines to evacuate every city on one such perfect world, and then they orbitally bombed each of the cities to dust, with many people dying as a result of refusing to leave their homes or having absolutely nowhere to go on a now barren world. The greatest of these bombed cities was Monarchia, the crown jewel of the Wordbearers. When the Wordbearers arrived at their shattered world, the Emperor psychically kicked them in the balls, forced them to kneel before him, and completely humiliated them with the intention of teaching them a lesson. The lesson being that if there were gods, those gods would be cruel and vicious. They would force servitude upon people as the Emperor was doing now. Now, spanking Lorgar wasn't a mistake. You can't have one of your generals directly defying your secular policies. But the way the Emperor did it, no warning, no chances, just galactic humiliation, was not the way to go about it. The Emperor knew Lorgar was a religious fanatic for him. When he arrived on Colchis, the entire world worshipped him, and Lorgar held a multi-day religious festival in his honor, to honor the Emperor as a god. The Emperor wasn't a fan of it, but he also didn't stop it or roast Lorgar. He just kind of copped it. Whilst Lorgar knew the Emperor didn't want to be called a god, he believed that only the truly divine would reject their own godhood, so ironically, it made Lorgar even more erect for his god Emperor. The Emperor could have taken Lorgar with him for a time, and explained more of the nature of the galaxy, that there were no gods. However, there were entities in the warp that pretended to be gods, and that by worshipping gods, it would empower these entities further. They also could have done the infamous pilgrimage of Lorgar together, with the Emperor as his guide, rather than a heavily biased chaos demon, thus answering Lorgar's burning questions without throwing him to chaos. By the Emperor shattering Lorgar's reality and destroying his faith and belief so brutally, Lorgar was lost and vulnerable, easy prey for chaos. However, if the Emperor took steps before such a dramatic punishment, then it's likely he could have avoided losing Lorgar, or at least the punishment being expected and justified. The raising of Monarchia was the first and biggest step on the road to Lorgar's damnation, hence a massive mistake by the Emperor. A lot of his issues and mistakes stem from the Emperor hiding the truth or just straight up lying to his sons about pretty important shit, mainly the Warp and the Webway project. The Emperor knew pretty much everything there was to know about the Warp and the Webway. He knew of each of the Chaos Gods, their nature, their potential, and their danger. He also knew about the Elders' Webway in great detail. After all, he literally begun colonizing it. However, he kept the knowledge of both not just away from the Imperium, but also his Primarch sons. The logic behind this was that what the Primarchs didn't know couldn't hurt them. That ignorance was bliss, and by them knowing, they may be tempted to investigate further and potentially become corrupted. Yeah, that went well, eh? Instead, the Primarchs were told a very rudimentary explanation of the Warp, and then had to slowly figure out more and more as they crusaded across the galaxy, and encountered fucked up xeno races or human cultures that worshipped chaos and could summon forth demons. This resulted in each Primarch having a flawed understanding of the Warp and its danger. Magnus wasn't told of the Chaos Gods or the malicious sentience of the Warp denizens. Hence he was arrogant and naive, believing himself to be the greatest being in the Warp, and thus he happily dealt with Titsnitch, not realizing it was a demon god of manipulation. It's a similar situation with Fulgrim. If he knew about Slaanesh and the warning signs, then he never would have picked up the Slaaneshi layer blade, which corrupted him to chaos. When the nature of the Warp was revealed, many of the Primarchs were angry with their father for withholding such important information from them. They were told of the Warp and its nature by Chaos, not the Emperor, so they got a skewed and biased opinion of it. Many traitor Primarchs list the Emperor's lies as one of the main influences for them to become naughty. Same goes for the Webway project. The Emperor randomly leaves the Great Crusade without explanation, leaving his Primarchs, Space Marines, and a lot of the Imperial army feeling abandoned. Many of the traitors who didn't know or care about chaos did care about being abandoned and saw Horus, who continued to fight on the front lines, as the new worthy leader, a man who didn't abandon them like the Emperor did. If the Emperor told his Primarchs, "Yo guys, I'm gonna be busy for a while working on a project that will ascend humanity to its next stage of evolution and cement the Imperium as an eternal kingdom of enlightenment, but we have to keep it a secret as nefarious forces, such as warp entities and the Imperial Navigator houses will attempt to sabotage it. I have not abandoned you, and if you need me, call me anytime. Love, Dad." Boom. Crisis averted. Instead, he just said, "See ya," and ghosted the fuck out of everyone, only ever reappearing to tell people off or spank his sons for being naughty. Honesty is key, guys. The only time I've ever been fucked, like in a bad way, is when I haven't been honest. The next big mistake the Emperor made, and this one genuinely could be the biggest, was the Council of Nicaea. Basically, a few Primarchs, like Lehman and Mortarion, had cracked the shits about the legions using psychers and librarians, especially the Thousand Sons, and wanted them banned. The Emperor did not want to have conflict between his sons, so he decided that by putting together a council, they could decide what to do with the psychers and the legions once and for all, finally having a unified policy. Magnus debated in favor of psychers, Mortarion and a few others debated against psychers. The Emperor decided that Magnus was too arrogant and took his psyker powers too far, hence to appease his anti-psyker sons and reel in Magnus, the Emperor banned the use of psykers, other than the essential navigators and astropaths, from the legions under threat of death. This alienated Magnus, who was one of the Emperor's most loyal sons, and pushed him into the clutches of Titsnich, who was able to manipulate Magnus into destroying the Emperor's Webway project and turning the Thousand Sons to chaos. With the Webway project destroyed, humanity's best chance at enlightenment was gone. This also forced the Emperor to sit on the Golden Throne for most of the Horus Heresy. Thus, he wasn't able to venture into the galaxy and destroy Horus himself, all because of the mistake of the Council of Nicaea. Now, the Council itself wasn't a terrible idea. Having a definitive policy about psychers was a good call, and psychers were dangerous. However, the overall ruling was shit, stupid, and hypocritical. There were two much better options. The first was to continue to use psychers, however place more safeguards and security over their use to ensure they didn't go too far. This was suggested during the council by a conclave of librarians from numerous legions, and it's actually the modern day policy for psychers within the legions. This wouldn't have made Magnus or his detractors totally happy, but it was a middle ground that would have been respected. The Emperor could have then sent a number of custodies to watch over Magnus like he did with Lorgar. However, the second and much better option would have been to ban psychers and librarians, however bring Magnus and his legion to Terra to help with the Webway project. At this point they were still hyper loyal, and the presence of the Emperor would have helped to keep the influence of Titsnich at bay. With Magnus and his legion's psychic might, the Webway project would be greatly accelerated, whilst also keeping Magnus close by so he couldn't fuck shit up. However, the Emperor did neither of these. Instead, he made a massive mistake that the Imperium is still reeling from to this very day. The final big mistake of today was the Imperial Truth. Fundamentally, the Imperial Truth was a lie. There was demons, angels, magic, sorcery, and even gods in the galaxy. I know why the Emperor made the Imperium secular. It took power away from demons and gods, but it still meant the Imperium was founded on a lie that Chaos exploited to ignite the Horus Heresy. The Imperial Truth should have instead been that there were thirsting gods, demon lords that wanted to consume people's souls. However, by rejecting these entities and living benevolent lives, they would starve these entities of power. Now yes, this does run the risk of people turning to these gods who they are now aware of. However, I think if people knew that to pledge to chaos was to get soul raped by demons for eternity upon death, then it wouldn't be very attractive. The issue is that because people didn't know about these entities, when they found out about them, usually from a demon or another cultist, they were only told the good parts of chaos. But if they knew the whole picture, it's unlikely they would drink the Kool-Aid. If Mortarion knew about Nurgle and what the Plague Father had in store for him, there is no fucking way he would have joined Horus. But he was ignorant and left in the dark, hence now he is a smelly Mothman. Once again, guys and gal, truth is the best policy. Moral of the story, there is no such thing as perfection within Warhammer 40k, if the most perfect being in existence is able to make such retarded mistakes. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Xenonid Raptors. Great models and good value. I'm keen to see the paint job you guys and gals give them. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more shit content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.